David Allworth from the Cycle Plant. What we concentrate on is a mobile repair service on the basis that out there in garage land around Toowoomba are hundreds and hundreds of bikes that probably need no more than just a pump up of the tyres or a fixing of the brakes to give people an alternative transport choice for Toowoomba. A lot of people would think Toowoomba might be too big for cycling, but in fact it's pretty much made for it. And really give yourself 30 minutes and you can, from the CBD, get to most parts of this city. It really should be a cycling city. The benefits of cycling, I think probably for us in Toowoomba the first one we should look to is that there's tremendous benefits for the person in terms of health, and you really have to ask yourself, we know we all need exercise, we know that generally as a population we're overweight. The question is, why in the hell are we sitting in our cars when we could get around and see our friends, do a bit of shopping, and usually most times we are buying something, what do you think, a newspaper, some milk? If you can't carry that on a bike, I'd be surprised. Or getting some form of recreation, and as I say, you can do all those things with bike. I use a trailer and, for instance, can do a weekly shop that's carrying somewhere in the vicinity of 25 to 35 kilograms of materials. That might not be everybody's choice, but cycling is extremely feasible, and it's shown by the fact that you look at the old photos of Toowoomba, and what were there? There were people on bikes. It was a part of our culture. Why aren't people cycling in Toowoomba? And I think probably what we've lost sight of is that the safety and people's perception and feeling safe on the road is our greatest barrier. Statistically, to cycle is no more dangerous or safer than driving, but all the accidents are generally happening with people who are coming out off footpaths and onto roads, those sort of pedestrianised sort of accidents. You can cycle safely in Toowoomba, but it's a matter of being confident in your own cycling skills. And I would encourage people to, first of all, cycle the quiet roads, get confident, and then begin to make your way and use the bike lanes that are already here, and just get yourself confident to look over your shoulder, to presume everybody else is not going to see you, and look out. And there are many people who have been cycling in Toowoomba for decades and haven't had an accident. You can do it.
Here we are at the Hope Pathways to Sustainability Expo, which is all about how we're going to make that journey to a more ecologically sustainable society. You've got a particularly interesting sort of take on that. You're a storyteller, you write books. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do and how that links to that wider agenda?
Excellent, thank you, Andrew. Storytelling is a really interesting art that I think somehow has been lost in this society, because sometimes we end up with telling a particular story rather than seeking out the stories that many people have got to offer, whether they be written down, whether they be oral tradition, or more importantly, the stories that are running around inside everybody's heads, because the internal story becomes your external reality. So when we relate that to the solutions to pollution, then the story that's inside our head, namely, if it be conservative, whether it be conservation, whether it be sustainability, is the way on which we will make our decisions. So what we have done with the Eco Hero books is to be able to get young children, these are written for 3 to 8 year olds, but they suit older ages as well. We try to get the children to be able to learn about sustainability by the stories we tell. We simply tell stories. There is a very interesting kind of township that's got its act together, and it's got a serial pest that we call Frowdy. The children overcome what Frowdy is doing, and then they deal with the consequences of that. and that's how we get sustainability across. The people who tell the story to the children, whether it be reading or whatever, then put their own particular slant to it. So we're looking at setting up a baseline of sustainability as a young person's toolkit for the future. From that point on, we can build a future if it's based on sustainability. And we invite everybody to be able to be part of that.
And I'm going to say, obviously, it's very attractive materials you've got here. What's the interest in this? I mean, you run a business on this basis. I mean, there is a lot of interest at that level of take-up from children's...
Absolutely. We have found that these books have only been out a few weeks. We have never advertised, and yet we are selling them quite well. We have had a lot of interest from the teaching community, whether it be teachers themselves or colleges or sustainability centres set up by the state. We were talking to the Minister for the Environment, Kate Jones, yesterday, and she's expressed an interest in following it through. The books are distributed through Steve Parrish Publishing, the world-renowned photographer, and he's got the biggest distribution network in Australia, so into post offices, bookshops of all natures, into gift shops and things like that. So yes, we're going to have another 3 of the series will be coming out before Christmas. So we'll have 4 books out before Christmas, all aimed at getting that internal story, including sustainability, because unless we sow that in our young, then the quick time solutions that we have at the present, they're not going to last. They'll just become another fad. Yeah. But as sustainability is introduced into the formula, that's when we'll produce real change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Cheers.
We have to look after the environment by the buildings we use. This needs to be more than just the building, the materials we use, all the other aspects of living in the building, how we live in the building, how we use the building. Comes up to, a lot of it's got to do with orientation. Everyone's sort of known that in the past, but we have to get that orientation right for the location we are in, and also the size of the buildings, to get away from this persistence to having bigger and bigger buildings, coming back to smaller buildings, comfortable size rather than oversized, because the impact of a building on the environment is quite large. It can impact on more than just the materials, but also how we live in it, and how we come back to using the energy we need to operate the building. So for instance, you get concrete slab is the best flooring material because it has the connection to the ground, the thermal mass, all those sorts of things. However, it's an expensive thing up front, but over the life cycle of the building, it well and truly matches those costs. And it's those sorts of things we need to look at to balance one against the other, to come up with the longer term cycle of the building and how it operates.
Right. And where do you think we are in Queensland, for instance, in terms of getting this more into public awareness? I mean, where are we in terms of the proportion of buildings that are designed sustainably, perhaps? How far have we got to go, perhaps?
Well, we've got a long legacy of older buildings that have got problems, but with newer buildings now it's sort of mandated that we do quite a lot of stuff with our buildings. So we have got the water stuff with tanks. We've got benefits or cost savings with using other materials, but also we have to meet certain requirements in terms of energy efficiency of those buildings, and to try to get that right. So we have the 6-star rated houses. In actual fact, Queensland's the only state that's actually mandates that. The other states actually have other ways of doing it. Victoria has it in a roundabout sort of way, but they don't. New South Wales uses basics to come up with their solution. but Queensland does mandate the 6-star rating, and you know, there are ways to gain that, various ways of gaining that, but you know, it's still on the ball there as far as that's concerned. Other initiatives that make Queensland you know, fairly well up there is trying to improve those situations beyond that, trying to come up with, you know, smaller lot sizes and encouraging that sort of stuff so that we can actually reduce the footprint, not only of the building but of the estate, and do those sorts of issues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Michael, here we are at the Pathways to Sustainability Expo laid on by Hope. Excel Solar is here, and Excel Solar is a company that sells photovoltaic panel installations to the public. Can you say a little bit about photovoltaics? It's a big word. You know, solar electricity, electricity from the sun. Can you say something about that, about your operation, and why you think that's helping to bring us towards a more ecologically sustainable society?
Okay, I suppose the main thing, this has all probably been driven by the government at the moment. They set targets of 20% renewable energy by 2020, and the rebates have often given incentives to people actually to have driven that probably surge at the moment. We've started to see the rebates come down, but we've also seen now the upcreep. People have realised the benefits of solar, but they've also, so they're actually still now doing they're still actually installing the solar, so they're not actually stopping because of the rebates. So
it's still a very popular
yes,
thing at the moment?
Probably more popular, I'd say.
How many panels of interest would you be installing, you know, at the moment, in a week or a month? Or?
Probably around about 1,000 a month.
1,000 a month in the Darling Downs
In the
area?
Darling Downs area. And I can't really see that stopping probably for the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah.
What do you think is driving people's interest generally in installation? Is it the cost savings involved? Is it the green side of it? They want to be a good environmental citizen? I mean, what do you think it's...
I think the uncertainty of where power prices are going, that's probably what's... People sort of hearing these stories, and it's been pretty true to what's been happening. Is Choice predicted 3 years ago the power prices were going to double within 5 years, and I think they're on target for the way that's going. At the moment, electricity increased in 6% last month it was, predicting further increases again, so
you know, do you foresee in the future then, let's say, you know, 5 years down the track, where do you think, you know, solar electric is going to be? Is it still going to be, if it's going to be expanding at the rate that it is now, presumably?
Where I see solar in 5 years' time, I think it'll be like the Hills hoist of the Australian backyard. People won't have a Hills hoist, they'll have a Hill hoist and a solar system on their thing. It'll just become... It'll become the norm. You'll be sort of looking at your house sort of saying, well, why hasn't that house got a solar system on it?
So at the moment, I mean, I don't know, the last time I knew, you know, like only about, was it 10% of Queensland roofs or something like that, but we could expect to see in Queensland the number of panels on roofs going up into really substantial amounts, yeah?
Yes, I think with building design, people are starting to think about that with building design now. They're thinking of that north-facing roof, they're looking at shading, they're looking at ways of minimising their power bill. And I think they're just starting to be a bit more responsible.
So just in closing, you know, just to wrap this up, if anyone watching this was thinking about, you know, on the edge of making a decision about getting solar on their roof, what would you say to them? I mean, what are the benefits? How would you...
Personally, from what I've seen around the world, from travelling around Europe and what's happening in Australia for the last 3 years, I think anyone who doesn't think of doing something with saving their energy, installing a solar system or some sort of heat pump, I think they're mad for not doing it at the moment, especially while rebates are out there, feed-in tariffs are good. It's certainly
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, that's basically it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.